Today we're going to be installing this GreenYi camera into a 2013 Toyota Camry. This has the screen in it but no camera. So we're going to add the GreenYi camera to it. And this one has a 170-degree field of view, so it should be plenty wide to be able to see behind you. The camera looks like this and has a little nut up on the top to lock it to the back of your car. And this is the power cord that we're going to have to run from the back of the car up to the front. And so up in the front, it's going to plug in with an RCA jack, and this piece here plugs into the camera itself. Now there's also an extra piece that we have to have that goes up into the front behind the radio. This is the wire that goes between the radio and one of the existing plugs. Basically what happens is you unplug the original, plug it into this one, and then this end plugs back into your radio. And this gives you a positive and negative 12-volt wire, and also gives you the input for your camera. So this is the overall breakdown real quick in the steps. First thing we need to do is take all these little plugs out of here. You put a screwdriver in here and pry these out. Then we're gonna drill a couple holes for the camera and run the wire down along here with all the other wires down around this around this arm here. And then there's a hole back there. You can see it there where other wires go in. Right, they go in right there, and it's going to go in back behind the rear seat. Inside the back seat here, we're going to need to grab this seat just very forcefully, kind of over here in the middle of this here. Just grab it and pull up, and it will unlatch on this side. Grab it over here real hard and pull it up, and it will unlatch. And then because this is a 2013 Camry SE, there's actually 2 bolts down underneath this arm here that we'll need to take out so that we can get the wire that comes through the hole here, run it along the back here. Then we're going to pull off this plastic here in the door frame and run it along here. Then up here it has to slide through the existing plastic inside the arm, the piece between the 2 pillars. It just slides down through there. Then up here in the front, that wire will come out of this plastic here, and we don't need to take any of this plastic off, just leave it there. But then we're going to take off this piece along the driver's door here and pull it off, and we're going to run it along there, and then we'll run it up behind the plastic piece in here to the left side of your feet, and we're going to weave it up over the wires and stuff in there. Just keep it out of the way so that it doesn't get hit by the brake pedals or any other thing that moves under there. And then we'll put it back behind the radio. And the radio, first thing you do is grab this air vents and just pull it straight out. You should be able to do it with your fingers. Then there's 2 bolts inside here, 2 bolts down below here. They're back behind these little side panels. And these side panels grab and pull out also. And then that will get all 4 bolts out. Just don't drop them, because it'll probably be a pain to pick them up. Then we'll pull the radio out, put the adapter piece in, and hook up to the camera. Then put it all back. So that's the overall steps. All right, we're gonna get started. When you pull these out, you don't want to lose any of them. Just be gentle with them and don't break them off. They're hard to find locally, and if you find them locally, they're expensive. So with the headliner out, next thing we need to do is take out these 2 bolts, and then there's 2 back in here, those 2, and these 2, and that will allow the piece up here on the top, right here with the Toyota logo, to come out, and we can drill a hole in the bottom of this and then one into the car, so we can run the wire through and then on up to the front. All these nuts are removed now. There's also that little white plastic piece there, and that's going to be a pain to get out. There's one right here in the middle, and then there's one more on the other side also. And you got to kind of squeeze those with a pair of needle nose pliers, and then it'll pop out and allow that top piece to come out. So here's the piece off the back, and this is where we're going to drill the hole right here in the middle, directly underneath the T. Now you can put it off to the side if you wanted to, but then it's going to, your backup lines in your camera are going to be a little wonky, but you know, it is what it is. But we're going to make this straight so that it looks straight when you're looking out of the camera. All right, so now we're going to, with that stuff loose, we're getting the radio out. Next thing we're going to do is start running this wire. And what we're going to do is, this wire comes with an adapter piece that looks like this, where this plugs into the camera, and then this is the power and ground, and the RCA connection here is actually needs to run to the front. So we're going to start with this stuff and start running the wire to the front. For the camera to fit through this piece, we're going to use a 1/4 inch drill bit, and we're going to put it here in the bottom, like I said, directly under this T, and try to get this get the camera centered. Now don't drill the hole in the center, because then you're going to be this is going to be hanging off the end of the car. So you kind of want to keep it back toward the car a little bit, because like I said, it's not centered on this, and that'll keep the camera from hanging off the end. There's the hole, and it's centered on the T, and it's kind of back toward the back, and that, like I said, it'll allow the camera to fit fully on the plastic like this. That way it's not sticking off the front and it's not hanging off the back either. It is good and centered in there. The ground wire for the camera is actually going to be grounded in the back, and we're going to put this on top of one of the bolts that we took the nut off of earlier, and that way it'll ground in the back, and then it'll draw power from the front. We're going to connect this red wire to the red wire from the other cable that runs up to the front of the car, so it can pull 12 volts off of the adapter wire that connects to the radio. The camera should have come with a little kit like this. Here's a wedge if you want to angle your camera down, but we're not going to do that. Oh, there's another wedge. We're mostly interested in this piece here, and this is going to be a little sticky pad to hold the camera straight, and then the nut, the lock nut and the regular nut are going to go on the back of the camera to hold it down so it doesn't come off later. So we drilled another 1/4 inch hole here next to the existing hole, and we sanded it down with a file, and we're just putting this tape in place to kind of cover up the edges a little bit more, just to reinsure that the wire doesn't get cut at all, ever, so that we don't have to deal with it or take this apart again. And then next we'll be ready to put the camera, or this back plastic piece, back in place. So here's the wire in the back that runs up to the front, and this is where it's going to be outputting 12 volts once it's connected to the wire inside or back behind the radio. We're going to connect it up to this wire so that it can feed the camera 12 volts. So we're going to solder this here, and then we're going to take this piece that we soldered on, and we're going to put it up on just one of these bolts that where we took the nuts off earlier. It doesn't matter which one, because they're all grounded. But we're going to put it on there, and it'll mash it up tight against the frame, and it should ground just fine. So get this going. The main thing with the solder is just to make sure that it's completely covered, these two connections that are soldered together, because you don't want it shorting out to the frame. Just like in the front, we're going to tape these RCA connections together just so they don't come apart ever, and we don't ever have to mess with it again. They'll just stay together. So here the rear seat is loose, and the two bolts are down here. There's one right, it's kind of black right there, and then there's the other one. So we got to take those two loose, and then this pillar will come out. So the wire is basically zip tied to the big wire of her big round thing of wires that goes up to the front. So now we're ready to put this back in place, and it kind of goes in and pushes down a little bit, just like when it came out. You got to lift it up a little bit and pull it out. If you put the seat up a little bit, it'll help make it a little bit easier job. Here in the back, the RCA cables are taped together. Just kind of did a little wire management, put all the stuff back inside there, and it's kind of sitting back inside the hole so that it doesn't interfere with the liner when we put it back up. And this area should be done. I got a zip tied coming around here, and I might have to put a couple more back there. Yep, a couple more zip ties back here, and I left a little bit of slack here under the trunk to allow that thing to flex and not get too tight of a pinch, because we do not want it to flex a lot and flex real tight and break the wires inside and then have to rerun something. So next thing to do is put the liner on, and this back area should be pretty much done. The liner is all back in, all the plastic pieces are in, all the wiring is in place, and the zip ties are all holding it in place. So up here on the dash, we have to kind of grab this. You can do it with your fingers, or you can get a pry tool, but you grab it with your fingers and pull, and this will pull straight out. See if I can do it while I'm trying to record. Pull there. So I just pulled it with my fingernails and it comes out real nice. And that's what it looks like. And then inside here are the 2 bolts there. And then down here on the sides, you grab this. Let me see if I can get it. Just kind of shake it and pull it and it comes off. I'll shake this one. Pull it. It's hard to do with one hand. So try. That one's a little tighter. You grab it with 2 hands and pull it. And there it is. And there's the other one back there, the screw.
How's that?
In the back. Sorry. Next thing you want to do is put your fingers underneath here and kind of push this top piece off. And it just needs to break loose. It doesn't really move out of the way. It just breaks loose to let the radio go loose. And then we need to grab the sides of the radio down here below. And we're going to kind of pull it on the bottom. And then it'll kind of lean out the bottom and come out. And it's going to be attached. So we don't want to pull it like a lot. Just going to pull a little bit. There it is. There. And that's it. Then we're going to take this wire and plug it in there once we get the RCA wire ran up all the way. So we have the power wire and the video wire run all the way up to the front. And down under here, underneath the steering wheel, you just kind of want to get it up out of the way where it's not going to interfere with your pedals. So once it's up here, and then we got the radio out, we have to pull the wire out of the back. This one right here. There, right there. This one out of here, and we're going to put that adapter piece in between. So there's the loopy wire, the extra wire. Just put it in between the 2 of those. So now we're going to plug the RCA cable into that. Plug the 2 RCA cables together, and we're going to put some electrical tape around that so it doesn't come undone later. Then we're going to take this red wire and we're going to solder it to that red wire and then put tape around them so that it doesn't come apart. And this red wire coming off the radio feeds 12 volts through this wire back to the camera in the back. And so we're not going to use the ground wire here because we're just going to ground to the bolt in the back. So we'll cover this end up with tape. All right, back up here in the front, we're going to get some solder on this, twist these ends up. This is the one that comes off of the new wire we put in, the harness there. We're going to get some solder on this. We're going to take the end of this, strip some off of this wire that goes to the back, and solder those 2 together. And that'll feed 12 volts back to the back of the car for the camera. Those soldered together easy enough. Now let's just put a little tape on there. And again, we want to cover up all of the solder. That way we don't have this thing shorting out to anything. That would be bad. All right, now we're going to try to get this back in. We're going to start with the top going in first and then feeding the back of the bottom in. We also want to keep these wires out of the way that we just tied up in here. Get this. Find it. Yep, there it is. And we're in business. And this, do the back first. Front should just snap in. There we go. All right, now we got to put the 2 bolts back up on top, the 2 bolts on the bottom. Then we can slide the thing back in, the vents back in, and put the side pieces back. We got the plastic pieces back in place here. All the wiring's up, the radio's back in, the vents are in, so now we're going to test it. All right, now for the test. We just put it in the on position, and we're going to pull it into reverse. Oh, and it works. The backup camera is in place. There's no special programming on the radio to do. You just got to put that wiring harness in place, and the radio automatically looks for a camera signal, and when it sees it, it displays it when it goes into reverse. So that's it. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and I'll try to help you out as best I can. And as always, thanks for watching.